Hi, this is Mark Sehl. It's 2018, so Happy New Year. I hope you all had a healthy New Year, and it's good to be back here again. I am thinking about thoughts about New Year's for this talk because people do a lot of different things on New Year's, and the greeting is Happy New Year. Right? So sometimes people spend it with friends, family, in a quiet mode, reminiscing, looking forward. Some people go out and party a lot, and during that party they might get really drunk, and that's a lot of fun for some people. For some people it's not, because they get too drunk and it's reminiscent of how they've been drinking for a long time. As a matter of fact, somebody wrote into me and she said this is the first time in a long time she's been sober on New Year's. So for that person, it was that was special for her in that way. So there's a lot of different ways people can celebrate Happy New Year. They can go to Times Square. That was quite a chore this time. It was so cold. What I heard, that millions of people went to see the bull drop. Yeah, so people could spend a quiet time alone sometimes. That could be very happy. And for some people, it's very sad time for them. The expectation for people is, Happy New Year. And what if people are not happy? What if they have a hard time for different reasons being happy? So for them, it could be a very difficult holiday. It can be a very difficult holiday for people because one thing that holidays do stir up is memories of when times were not so happy in their family. Very difficult times often. And so just the holiday season, will bring that up. And you're not alone if you're unhappy on this holiday, not by a long shot. The happiness index is quite down low. I just read that someplace, and yeah. You could be in your own unique way, sitting by yourself, and you're deciding not to go out with friends, not because you're scared of being with people, although that's a very big reason, but because you just don't want to celebrate. Maybe you have thoughts about feeling about the world situation and what's coming. Happy New Year. You have two leaders of two very important countries, talking about going to war, and, pressing the finger on the bomb, making things happen like that. Terrible. So the person who's staying at home and wants to be quiet could be very unique and not odd because they don't want to go anywhere or maybe be with anywhere. They just wanted to contemplate the seriousness of our life situation currently and ponder about what's going to happen. Yeah. So, but people tend to blame themselves if they're not with somebody. It's like, if I'm not with somebody, what's the matter with them? Which reminds me of somebody I worked with many years ago, and this was when I was beginning my training. He was telling me the story of his life, and one thing stuck in my mind with those first interviews. He told me that he was at home with his mom, and he was very depressed. And she looked over at him and she said, "What's wrong with you?" Well, that stuck in his mind, and that in my mind particularly, maybe more in my mind, because I said, well, this is not somebody who's interested in her son in terms of what he really is going through, or else if she could have said something like, "Can I ask you a question?" or, "You seem troubled. Would you like to talk to me about it? And if you are," but it was, "What's wrong with you?" And that scars somebody because they make them feel, I think that's not the only thing that made him have a lack of confidence and like he wasn't like there was something wrong with him because he was depressed. That's the message, that he ended up with. But not only with that singular statement that she made, but that exemplified many of her interactions with him. And he had good reason to be depressed because his father was active alcoholic, and he would come home and sometimes during the day stumble around in sight of my patient's peers at that time, and he would feel embarrassed. He'd have fights home with his mom, and bitter fights. So one way or the other, the father wasn't providing emotionally or financially. He was having trouble too. So for my patient, he was scared and took this personally on a reflection on him and his own worth, being criticized and attacked for his feelings. So of course he began to think that he was wrong for having feelings. The most important thing that we have in our life, in my opinion, is, as you know from all the podcasts and YouTube talks, is the world of our emotions. Yeah, much more than anything else. So, and many people can say things to us over our lifetime that affects how we are coming into this new year, 2018. What we bring into that new year. Do we bring in pessimism? Or do we bring in optimism, or somewhere in between? There's a lot of variations, but I think the way we were raised is going to affect how we see the world in this new year. So for my patient, he at that time now he's very different. He has resolved a lot of those conflicts. Doesn't attack himself. Doesn't feel bad about himself. So he would bring in. And also he had a huge and major accomplishment in his life, major one. He was very successful in his field, did something that nobody else has done in terms of, I can't say what it is, but so now he's settled. But at that time, if he was going to into a new year, he would be feeling very sad, very unhappy. Yeah, so many people say things to us like when we're vulnerable that stick, like when child's excited, don't let that go to your head. So in the middle of excitement, the message is, don't get too excited. Well, that could affect your going into a new year. People are happy. If you get excited, you might have to dampen it, right? Because you're not supposed to, so you've got this reprimand hounding you. So you tamper down your excitement. That's automatic with some people. Or some people would say when you're kidding a kid and you're the kid is happy, and he's running around and he's all excited. And again, don't let it go to your head. Or supposing, and I've heard this before, and perhaps you have too, in your friends or family, when the child is maybe struggling with grades, for a year or so, and he's having a hard time, and all of a sudden he gets this high mark, right? So he wants to go home and he wants to tell his family, or mom, dad, grandmother, whoever may be home. He's so excited. He made it. He got this great mark. And he goes home. And there's silence when he makes this announcement. People are there, but they don't react. They don't say, oh, you must feel terrific. Yeah. Or he could get something like, oh, watch out, don't boast. Don't boast. It's a sin. Sometimes it is a sin in some cultures, I think, but it's not a sin. That's what you grow up believing because of the way you're raised. But it's something to be very. If you're boasting on solid achievement, and you're not running around all over the world demanding people give you attention, but you're just saying, I'm happy with that, but I got this grade. I feel very proud of myself. That's legitimate. What's illegitimate is for someone saying an authority or a friend or whatever, oh, don't boast, or don't let that go to your head. So we bring all these things into our new year and with us sometimes, unless if you have had some therapy under your belt. hopefully you've resolved these things, so that would make the new year a different one for you, or at least you could think about how you are now, and how you could be if you resolved some of these feelings that you have about yourself and having the level of confidence in the world. So that's what I wish for you. Not that my wish is important. I can hope you can have that wish for yourself. That you can listen to these podcasts and, like me, put that screen out of your way. You know how this little thing pops in the middle? So I just cleared that one. So you could take a moment and do something like that in the middle of something, and it's okay. There's a lot of things that we carry around in ourselves that are inhibit us, make us ashamed of ourselves, make us feel like we're bad for having feelings. And that's what that all ends up with often. I'm bad for having feelings. My feelings are bad. What's the matter with you? You're depressed. My feelings are bad, and therefore I must be bad because of having feelings. Right? That's where it goes. Confidence is so important in life, to have self-confidence and feeling that you can walk anywhere in the world and be yourself. That's where we frame this whole the YouTubes and the podcast in terms of it's a joy to be hidden and disaster not to be found. You know, but certainly disaster not to be found. You're not going to want to be found out, because you don't feel people, if they get to know you, are really going to like you. Yeah. When people come into therapy, they really have, they walk the line coming in here, because people have so much anxiety, depression in them, and fear of judgment. You know, my first video was about, first talk was fear of judgment. And my group, they all said that was their hesitancy about coming for group therapy, is judgment, that they would be judged. Every one of them. Some of them are still with me. Yeah, now they're not, they don't have that to the extreme of that fear of judgment. You know, but that, if we carry that in, we're going to be really very inhibited in terms of our actions, in terms of being able to be confident to going for a job application, or meeting a new girl and seeing, or a girl or a guy seeing a pretty girl, or a girl seeing this handsome guy. Just walk over to him, say hi. That's it. It's simple, isn't it? No, it's not so simple. When it comes to an attractive girl or attractive guy, forget it. Not for everybody, but certainly for many, many people who would like to. If you can just walk up to somebody and say hello with confidence, that's half the battle in trying to meet somebody. That's it. You could walk anywhere, into a drugstore, bump somebody into the, intentionally or not, into the supermarket. If you see a pretty girl or a handsome guy, you could just bump somebody in and say, "Oh, excuse me, can I ask you a question? What do you think about these prices?" You know, start up a conversation. Are you from the neighborhood? Maybe you could recommend a restaurant. If you have a nice conversation with them, you could have fun. You could say, gee, this is better than Match.com. You can do a lot of things if you're not afraid. Fear is the worst enemy, but fear is irrational. It's based on things that we've just talked about being judged, about being ashamed, you know, a bit ashamed of yourself and facing. So if you have a lot of shame, how can you go up to somebody and say, "Hi, my name is," you know, your fear of rejection takes over. And or being very assertive with your boss and says, "Well, by the way, I've been working here for some time, and I think I've done very well, and I think you've given me very good reviews, so I'd like a raise." Well, we're very inhibited. We're human beings, and most of us, in my opinion, have been raised with these fears and criticized, and much more than that sometimes. We just did a video, I think it was on YouTube, and also a podcast about working with abused children as adult survivors of abuse. They have it rough. It's not only them that have been physically and emotionally abused. Abuse can take many forms. Like that mother patient, my mother said, her saying to him, "What's wrong with you?" That's abuse. You might not think so. It doesn't sound very. She's not throwing down him. She's not beating him with a stick or something like that. It doesn't have to be. Depending upon your level of sensitivity to remarks, it can be very, very hurtful and keep you very reticent about being yourself in the world. We want to be able to be ourselves, authentic. Everyone writes now recently about authenticity. Yeah? Well, it's a pretty important concept to be able to be yourself and say what's on your mind. And if you can't do that, hopefully you can come to talk to me or somebody that you know that's been in therapy and that you like. And or else you could be sitting there about things that I'm saying to you and saying, "Gee, that clicks to me. I have these anxieties and same fears and never do anything about it for another 10 years." That happens often with people. They have an idea and, well, maybe I'll go to therapy, and then they just click it out of their minds. And they might have had an idea. Well, now this New Year's, I just broke up again with somebody for the 5th time. What's going on? Or somebody broke up with me. This is a time of makeups and breakups. This is the season. So, and you click and say, well, I wonder why I do that. And then that thought goes out of your mind. And 10 years later, you might come back to me or another therapist and say, well, I'd like to explore this problem because every relationship I have is sour. Or looking for a job, or not being able to ask for a raise, or whatever it might be that you want to develop. So think about it. This is a time, New Year's is a time you can reflect too on things that you wonder about but never did anything about. Like what we're talking about, like having a marital problem or never going to couple therapy, never going, or not being able to get along with groups, having social anxiety, having a lot of anxiety, and sometimes you're so paralyzed you can't move. That's what it does. Anxiety does to people. It paralyzes them. Depression paralyzes them. Sometimes people are so depressed they can't get out of bed and go to work. Our emotional life is so important in impacts on every aspect of our life in terms of relationships, relationship with boss, friends, family, wife, husband, children. That's a big one. The case of Sehl, I've mentioned that every time, I think, in every video and every talk, the case of Sehl. But his mother took him to therapy, and if she didn't take him to therapy, he would have, for a lifetime, he would have felt that it was his fault that his mother couldn't communicate with him, nor could he communicate with her. But she took him to therapy, and she found out that it was her responsibility. She was creating the problem because of her own transference and her relationship with her mother. And it happens all the time, doesn't it? Generation after generation. So if you have children and you're having an unhappy time with them and them with you, so you can do something about it. So this is Mark Sehl from the YouTube channel Therapy for the Heart, talking about thoughts about New Year's. Yeah. Again, I admire the people who can come and do something about it, because action is very important. And that's New Year's resolutions. And actually, if you make them and break them, don't beat yourself up. Try to make them the next time you think about it. There's always a next time. There's always another time, but don't put it off, because that putting it off could be for a long time, as some of you may know. Okay, so please, if you like this talk, give it a like on the button there. You press like, and you can contact me at marksehl@gmail.com. And I hope to see you too next time. This is Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesdays with Mark. So thanks a lot, and I'll be talking to you soon. All right, bye-bye.